Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Culture Corner here on the Serenity Resource Connector. Whether you're tuning live or you're watching the replay, it is always a pleasure to have you here. And for those of you who are connecting with us through Love TV, a warm welcome to you. I trust that you'll enjoy this package that we have for this episode. We are going to be focusing on out of many, one people, reigniting greatness through our heritage. And if you saw earlier the opening, you'll realize that our guest is a true representation of our motto because the out of many in the topic is our motto. And then the second part, reigniting greatness through our heritage, is actually the theme for Heritage Week 2022. So just in case you didn't get that before, that's what it is. And you know that our motto means that as a Jamaican people, we are diverse based on our diverse cultural background and everything else that comes in the mix. So we have sharing with us a representative from the Chinese community, a representative from the Indian community, and then we're going to have the African aspect of it in the mix because we cannot talk about heritage without that dynamics. So with we are going to bring on the first guest for this episode in the person of Dalton Yap, Chinese Benevolent Association current president. Welcome to the Serenity Resource Connectors, Dalton.
Thank you. I'm very delighted to be here and to share with you, my experiences and so on. Happy to
Awesome.
be here. Delighted.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did some research as usual, and I realized that the Chinese Benevolent, it was society before, but
hmm
now it's association, and it actually started in Jamaica from 1891, way
Yep.
before our independence.
We are one of the oldest, I believe, organization continuously, okay, in Jamaica.
Right?
1891 is a long time, 100, no, over 170 years, I think. Yes. Quite a,
Yes,
quite a bit, okay, quite a while.
indeed. And if you were forming a society at that time, it means that the Chinese community has been here for quite some time before, and so a rich part of our heritage. So
Mhm.
share with us, when exactly did the Chinese community get to Jamaica?
Well, 1854 was the year, and the date was July 30th. That's when the first shipload of uh, Chinese came to Jamaica to work in the plantations, and I think they settled mostly in St. Thomas, Dalton Street, I believe. And they came to Jamaica via Hong Kong, China, of course. And
Right?
in those days, the most Chinese, came from the southern region of China, in the province called Guangdong province. And Hong Kong is really a very small uh, port, in the southern tip of China.
Right. It's very interesting that you shared that the Chinese came to work on the plantation
Yes,
because, right, which is very important for us to note that the first set of Chinese were actually a part of that dynamics,
yes.
right? And
As indentured labor, so it was 3 years contract mostly. And well, the reason why they came is because of the abolition of the slavery in 1838. Okay, so the British had to find replacement workers for to work in the plantation. Okay, and they looked at the in the Asian world, and Chinese is one, and I believe that I'm sure the Indians, okay, they also came. They actually came a little bit earlier than the Chinese. Okay, yeah, I think they came 1851 or maybe 1850. So, so
right,
we all, we came here for that reason. Our forefathers, and then others also came to work to replace the workers, the slaves who now, they have an option of not to work there. Okay.
right. And your story is unique in that you were not born here, but you're Uh, your father it was that was born here?
My father was born in Jamaica in 1924. Okay. Now,
Okay,
in those days, the tradition was, if you can afford it, you send your boy picnic there, okay, and the girl picnic if you have enough money, okay. But normally the boy picnic to go back to China, learn some Chinese, and then maybe even marry a Chinese wife, then come back to Jamaica and run the business or join the business, okay.
right.
That was why my father was in Jamaica, was born in Jamaica, but also my grandmother was a brown woman from St. Elizabeth, from Ballas Valley.
Okay, interesting.
And the reason being, when my grandfather came to Jamaica, in those days, women were not allowed to accompany the husband. Okay,
Okay,
so like I said, when you're a man, you're a man, you're a man. Okay, and when you meet upon a nice lady, a young lady,
right.
and you hook up, and that's why we have so many half Chinese running around. I don't know.
So you are a part of the heritage,
I'm
right? But
part of the heritage, well, actually, as a result of some of the policies by the British, no less.
indeed, but tell us how was it like? What was it like for you when you got here?
It was, a very interesting experience. I came in 1972, September the 9th. I remember those days very, very
Wow.
distinctly. On a Panam flight. Okay, Panam. I mean, for those of us who remember Panam, if at all, okay. So when I came here, my impression was that maybe it's like the United States with, high-rise buildings and so on. But when I come to the Palisados and saw the buildings, wait, this is not, you know, where all the tall buildings are. But anyway, it was, so we grew up in Mandeville. All of us came to Mandeville. We spent about 3 or 4 months in Popine, and then we came to Mandeville to settle, and then the interesting is really, obviously, I didn't know too much of English. I only know the A, B, C, D, E, okay, and some of the simple words. So I had to learn English from scratch, and I went to then the West Indies College to study English for about 2 years. Now, West Indies College is now, NCU, obviously. And
Right.
then later on, I went to the Catholic College. Experience of going on Monday was great. It was a small town in those days. Very, very safe. I was riding bicycle all the way to New England. If you know where New England is, right? After past Mayday. Ride
Oh
bicycle.
yes, yes.
And
I
I
didn't
even
say
right up to I wouldn't say Newport, but not as far as Newport. But past Specialist College and just
yes.
just cruising down the bicycle down the hill. Oh, those were lovely. Those were wonderful days of growing up in Mandeville. And you just, carefree. You don't literally don't have a lock a door, okay, in those days. In the 70s. Okay, in the 70s. Uh,
Right.
but things have changed in the 70s, as we all know, okay, with the oil price shock of 74, and then, the whole political situation in the 70s was an experience. As a young man growing up, 76, 77, I was about 16 or 17. Uh, I was at the Carter College at the time. Election was state of emergency 76. So all those things, left, I mean, a lot of memories in my mind. Okay, what I need to go through on a day-to-day basis,
Right.
because of the political ideology at that time. You would have to endure a lot of those, costing you guys like, oh, go back to China and this and that, what I mean, that kind of stuff. But hey,
Yeah, this is part of it, which is why it's important to have these kind of discussion,
yeah,
because
yeah, yeah,
it's
yeah.
you hearing those kind of discussion, you think that the Chinese just came here in the past 20 years or so, but the Chinese have been a part of our heritage for quite some time, from the
Oh
1800s.
yeah, absolutely. And some of us have really, become more Jamaican than Chinese. and I'm not afraid to say that. Yes.
Because when I spoke with you on the phone, you didn't sound Chinese, Chinese.
No, I know, but because like I said, I came here in 1972, and
Yeah,
now it's 2022. 50 years I've been here.
50 years.
So I'm a drug, and I'm what, over 60, obviously. Okay. So look,
Right.
I spent half a century of my life in Jamaica.
That's right.
I'm more Jamaican than Chinese. It so happened that my lineage is and I have always been interested in the history of China, and I've been visiting as well to my home village in
Right.
China, okay, which is in southern China, of course, in Dongguan, and it's a place called Longbeiling. It's a
Right.
village of Yap, okay. Only Yap live there.
Only, yeah. Okay. You have
Yeah.
a whole village for yourself.
Well, how you mean, man? We have a village, man. Why, when you say, anyway, we have our temple, and my great grandfather's name is there on a plaque. Let me tell you, when I first visited there,
Yeah.
it was some experience. It's like you go on here, yeah, you go on to on to for let's say for you, you go back to Africa and you see your home village. You know what I mean? I
Yes.
guess I guess you would have a similar feel. I mean,
All right.
it was tremendous. To this day, I still think of it as one of my greatest experiences. You just see the temple and see the elders in the village, and they keep a record. What we call jukpu is really a record of like almost like the genealogy. Okay,
Right.
your great grandfather write down, and you can track. Who is which branch, and oh my goodness, they track
Yes.
it. They actually track everybody. Okay, yeah.
Okay. But
Somebody.
right. Let's focus on the Benevolent Association, the Chinese Benevolent Association,
Mhm.
because you came here very long time ago, but there are Chinese who are coming in now, and you're sharing that there are Chinese now coming from different parts of China
Mhm,
other than
mhm.
the south, which was
Right,
the norm before. So,
right.
what is it like for those Chinese who are coming in now? Just a synopsis of what it's like through in terms of what the association does to them to understand the dynamics of
Perfectly.
the heritage here.
Right. Well, let me go back a little bit to talk about why they're here in the first instance, okay? Because prior to 1980, most of the Chinese who came to Jamaica was largely from uh, from the southern region.
Right.
And you remember 1980, that is when we have the garment industry, the free zone, okay?
Right.
And where we employ over 10,000 to 15,000 Jamaicans. And what started the industry are workers from China, from even from the stitchers and the garment, using the machines and the supervisors to managerial level. They all have to be imported, and they would train, our Jamaican workers to work in the garment factories. I saw, I think NAFTA was introduced about 1986, and after that, a lot of the factories move away from Jamaica to Mexico to take advantage of the NAFTA agreement. And few factories left behind to continue to enjoy the CBI, which is a Caribbean Basin Institute that was used to start this program. But anyway, so some of the workers who actually uh, went back to China, okay, when their factories closed down, but some remained behind, and they, opened shop and started their own business, and they now, start a cycle of immigration, very much like our forefathers, except when they came to work in the sugarcane, season as indentured labor. Obviously, by 1980s, those conditions don't exist. So, and we have a more robust support group in place like ours. So when they come, okay, if should they have any problems, they can, I will assist them in whichever way. So how they start a business, a bank account, and if you need to go to school, we introduce you to the schools in your area and so on. So uh, assistance were given to all these new immigrants to the country, to Jamaica. And the part of the problem that we had at the time, because they speak Mandarin, which is, the national language or national language, yes. But here in Jamaica, we speak Hakka or Cantonese. But luckily for us, we always have, uh, very educated people that came to Jamaica from Hong Kong in those days who can speak, Mandarin. So, we rope them in and we get them to be a resource person to assist those persons. So I think, you know, these new immigrants, when they come to Jamaica, they get to enjoy the fruits of our labor. All these, from our association that I was from in 1891, certainly, we have resources available, okay, and also we have a lot of network in different area of the society. The businesses, banks, our everyday life, in terms of plumbers and workers and so on, or carpenters and so on. So, of course, schools as well. Okay, so when they come, they have to work hard. There's no question. Okay, they work 7 days a week sometimes. Okay, no different than our forefathers. But the good thing is that there's a support system in place. Okay, and that we can tell them the things to do, the things not to do.
Right?
Uh, and look, just stay your course and do your work. Okay, and raise your children here in Jamaica. Okay, yeah.
Yes. Okay, we're definitely going to have a further dialogue on that aspect because we want to get a better understanding and appreciation of what happens in the Chinese community because, after all, we are out of many, but importantly, one people.
One
So,
people.
right. So,
Okay.
and it's interesting that you shared that it's not just that those coming in now have to deal with learning English, but some of the traditional Chinese were not able to communicate with the
No,
Chinese
no,
coming
no.
in
Yeah,
because
you,
it's
I
still a
tell
language
you,
barrier.
it is
Interesting.
really, yeah,
Very
baptism of
interesting.
fire for me. I had to learn Mandarin myself.
Here you
From
go.
scratch. Yes, I know Hakka, which is our dialect, and
Right.
Cantonese because I was born in Hong Kong. Okay.
Yes.
Uh, but the Mandarin I had to learn. Still learning, as a matter of fact. Okay. And luckily, the Confucius Institute in Jamaica, Dewey, they
Yes.
do offer Mandarin classes. Okay. Yeah.
All right. Right, don't go anywhere. We're going to have to bring you back on to wrap up. Looking forward, we've heard a little bit of the past. What's happening now? So we're going to bring you back later so you can share. Looking forward in terms of what you see happening in terms of the heritage and where we're going as a people.
All
All
right.
right, as
Okay.
one.
Okay. Yep.
All right. So that was Dalton Yap, president of the Chinese Benevolent Association. And joining me next is Michelle Naraysingh, and she is the acting director for marketing and public relations at the JCDC. So you'll realize that the JCDC, which is our cultural group ambassador, has a diverse mix of our heritage wrapped up in the package there. And that is why they're able to serve us so well, right, Michelle?
Of course, that's what we do.
Indeed, because Michelle is representing the Indian community. And even though Michelle was born here in Jamaica, she grew up in an Indian, the traditional Indian family kind of setting. Was it?
That's correct. So,
What was it like?
okay, so my great great grandparents are from the what was originally called the city of Madras. It's now called Chennai in the southern part of India. That's where they came from here as indentured laborers. So as some persons may know, that first group of immigrants came to Jamaica, and they arrived in St. Thomas, and they also arrived at Old Harbor. So yes. So that's two of the major areas where you'd find a large Indian population. Also, as we know, in Westmoreland and St. Mary. So
Right.
that's how my grandparents, my great great grandparents came here. So my grandmother was actually born here in Jamaica, and my mother, and so on. So, but the community that we grew up in and the family was predominantly Indian, and all around us where we lived in the Spanish Town area was Indian. The family by virtue of how, because back in those days it was not unusual for a woman to have six, seven, eight, nine. In the case of my grandmother, 10 children.
Okay.
So it was a very large family, and there was no shortage of friends and cousins to play around with. So we grew up in predominantly, like I said, an Indian family, Hindu. And so the food, the major differences for me, and this is an ongoing thing within the JCDC for some of my colleagues,
Yeah.
the major thing is food differences, and some aspects that a lot of Jamaicans of African descent consider such a typical traditional Jamaican are things that I only came to know as a teenager,
Oh,
because my upbringing was so Indian based. So, like I mentioned, food is
yes.
a major part of that. We ate traditional Indian dishes, the various combinations of masala, aloo, different kinds of pumpkin takari. There's the use of the garden egg, callaloo, curry goat, of course, which is now
It's
Jamaican.
Jamaican.
Yes, roti, of course,
Oh, yes.
dal, all the traditional types of food. So that's a major area for me in terms of how that was. And of course, there was a whole no pork situation.
Okay.
Yes, yes. So my grandparents were in that kind of a traditional way, and so less with each generation that became so. And so my parents were were raised more Christian, and we went into Catholic school and were raised Catholic. But then when we go to my grandmother's, we had to observe and behave in a way that was appropriate and respectful of her Hindu tradition. So that's the and in a nutshell, so that's how it was we growing up we went to quite a number of the festivals. There were quite a lot of Indian festivals and activities at that time, like the Diwali festival, and so there was Roti festival. There were quite a lot of activities that would happen out at Chedwin Park in St. Catherine, and so we would attend quite a lot of those as family, and attend those and meet a lot of the other relatives. It was a large Indian community, and it certainly was not as integrated as we see now. As a child, you don't notice that difference, but it was pretty much a closed community. Yes.
Yes. I've been to a couple of the Indian festivals, and it's very found it very fascinating. The food and the dance. I see you're wearing your Indian garb there.
Yes.
What do you call that?
This is a chunka necklace. Normally, you'd be a person's are accustomed to seeing the one that comes down the forehead, which is a
Oh,
tika, right? And then there would be the red dot that would indicate the mindi, that would indicate the if you're married, right? Now it's more of a fashion statement, but that's where it came from originally. Yes,
okay. Because I remember growing up, we used to use
the
the
dot, yeah,
and our dots.
yes,
I had no idea what it meant, but it's an example of the infusion of the culture, the different cultural norms coming together there. Because when
right,
you get exposed to the different culture and you adapt a
right.
thing or two.
Yes, it's known as the bindi, and it is red in color to indicate usually that the woman is married.
Oh,
And red in Indian culture is the color of prosperity and the warding off of evil. And that's one of the reasons why, if you look at a lot of traditional Indian dress,
yeah,
you will see that the wedding outfit is a lot of
red.
red and gold and so on. So yeah. And an interesting point here is that how I merged my culture in my own wedding. I had a Catholic service, and my reception, which included Hindi elements in the service, and I had a reception in my traditional sari, Indian sari, and I had, with the help of my grandmother, who unfortunately passed a year ago, but she was with us, and so we had a more traditional style incorporation of an indie wedding in terms of the ceremony, in terms of the reception that we had. So, and my husband is also Indian. So,
Okay, there you go. The diversity, amazing. And do you dance? The Indian dance, though.
when I was a teenager, yes, not so much anymore. Not so much anymore.
Okay,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
right,
And
and
because we were surrounded by it. My my father's dad, my grandfather, my dad's side, he played in an Indian band called the Raja Sarangi group, and so we were always surrounded by Indian music. And for a lot of Jamaicans, the Sunday you would hear, they would have their Sunday music on their radio. And so for us, it was hearing my grandfather and his band playing out in the yard, and it was hearing Indian music, and that was what we grew up on. Unfortunately, I don't speak any Hindi at all. No. I know, I know.
you, you're
There are only
writing.
some things that I know, some
Yeah.
words, and again, food. So, like you heard me mention aloo and takari. There's jira, methi, dania. Jira, methi, and dania are actually spices.
Okay.
I can never remember what those translate to in English, because growing up and even as an adult, I only knew the Indian words for these types of foods. So I don't know. It's hard. I have to always be saying, so that's what my husband says, that I'm really not Jamaican, because I'd have to say, Ram, what is jira again? And he said, it's cumin, Michelle, it's cumin. Because I can never remember, because as a child, you only know these words as in the Hindi format.
Okay.
So yeah, they're those things. But it was quite interesting as you get older and you begin to realize how the whole concept of the out of many and the integration,
Yeah.
like, because I'm full Indian on my mom's side, because my mom and her side are completely straight Indian.
Yeah. Okay.
My dad is mixed, don't ask me what with. So we in that way, we in our own way are embodying that kind of out of many
Indeed.
concept. Yes.
Right. And Dalton would have shared that he has some mix there too. A lot of diversity going on. it's, it's a Jamaican thing. Right.
Yep. We just
Right.
can't help ourselves. We just can't help ourselves.
So there we go. And that is why out of many, we are one people. We are indeed one wherever you're, whichever part of the world you're from, in China, India, and you come here after a while, I usually say we just adopt you because
That's
they
true.
right because
And the same applies to the Indian population that we see coming in over the more recent decades, is as Dalton commented about those persons coming from China. A lot the original persons, indentured workers who came here, would have come from the southern or the southeastern part of India, but now you see with travel and technology, persons from all parts of India, Pakistan, are coming here, and making Jamaica their home, because we really do have that diversity in terms of how we are able to live together. Um,
Right.
so with such diverse views, both culturally from the cultural perspective, and if you want to throw in the religion and the politics and all of that, but still, we exist here
Right.
for the
So
most part in harmony.
yes. So is there still an Indian community in terms of a formal community like the Chinese Benevolent?
At one time, I do know that there was an Indian Cultural Society. It was based on Lady Musgrave Road because that would have been a place where, as children, or my parents and grandparents would take us to meet up with other people of Indian descent and to hold our festivals and to have different kinds of activities and so on. But in truth, as far as something that I need to look into. I do know that the communities themselves still exist in the way for quite a coming over from that period of where they settled. They still do exist that way in areas of St. Mary,
Right.
the same area, Spanish Town area, areas of St. Thomas, Westmoreland. Those areas still have a significant Indian population. Yes.
All right. So that was some awesome sharing there, Michelle. I love it. But you ought to go back to the dance from former years and share a clip with us on an upcoming culture
Oh
corner.
wow. I'll see. I'll break out the sari and do the thing. I'll probably
That's
have to
right.
rehearse for like a month or so, because it's been a while.
It will be well worth it. All right, stay with us. We are going to switch from this discussion, the Indian discussion, and stay with us, Michelle. We'll be right back. Right, so that was Michelle Naraysingh, and she is with the JCDC family, and she just shared with us what it was like growing up in an Indian family. And she is now seeking to remember the name of the food because of how they did it back then. All right, so we are going to switch gears a bit and we are going to be focusing on African retention. And to share with us on that is Patrick Earle, Dance Development Specialist at the JCDC. Welcome to the Serenity Resource Connector Space, Sir Earle.
Thank you so much.
All right, all right. So, for our viewers that are watching us from Love TV, connecting us with us live on the YouTube channel or elsewhere, tell us, for those who have no idea what this African retention mean,
All right,
break it
good,
down
good, good.
for
All
us.
right, thank you. So breaking it down now. So
Yeah,
African retention. Let us focus on the word retention, right? Let us break it down. To retain, to have parts of, right? So we have African practices, knowledge, know-how. And when the ex-slave came to the Caribbean, they brought with them certain understanding, certain practices, right? And because of that, what I call cross fertilization, that merging, that coming together, that melting pot, cultural practices transfer, right? So the practices of Africa is retained in the practices here in Jamaica. Good.
well, even if you didn't hear the term before, after that
Yes.
explanation, you should have a better understanding as to what exactly we're talking about. All right,
Yeah.
so we're going to get into some of those customs and practices that we still
Yeah.
retain now that's
Right.
coming
So,
from our
right.
ancestors.
All right. So I kind of break it down into some parts. I
Yes?
call it the look of identity, right? So we can talk about our hairstyles. Good. Um, yeah, like yours, like yours.
Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. And then
Right.
we can also the look of identity, the appreciation of our melanin or blackness in terms of the texture and the color of our skin, the look of identity. Then we can talk about our fashions, the various African prints. Good. So the
Yes.
look of
Love it.
identity. And also a part of the look of identity is the ideologies of Africa that is in our reasoning. You know, the Rastafari community is an embodiment of that kind of a thinking, right? So, and then we can look at our social practices, right? So that is when we talk about our music or food, yes, or dances, some of our everyday actions. For example, some man, you see when them go run bar, high love FM, right? And they pull a beer bottle, they would, pour out some on the earth. They are
Oh
giving
yeah.
it to our ancestors, right? And nowadays some people do it and don't understand the underpinnings, the why. Yeah, is a practice
So true.
that was retained, right? And then we have our religious movement. Rastafari is one of them, but we also have our Kumina and our revivalism. So Kumina is considered to be one of the purest African retention, and it is because those, I'm not going to call them slaves, or ancestors from Africa came after the abolition of the slave trade. So they could openly practice their religious beliefs, right? Without any cross fertilization, without any adaptation with the European retention. So Kumina is one of the purest African retention, and it was beautiful to hear Miss Narsingh mention that one of the locations that the Indians came to Jamaica was in St. Thomas, because we all know St. Thomas for Kumina, right? And a
Right.
part of the Kumina ritual is an Indian night where you have Kumina celebrating the Indian spirit. And also you find the Indian spirit in revivalism. Now, revivalism has two parts, Pocomania and Zion. Zion, that is more European influence, European retention, and Pocomania that has more African retention. So when you go to a Pocomania meeting, you would see more circle going anti-clockwise. You would see the 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 drum. They call it the playing cast or the kabando. So those are some of the religious practices that is evident in Jamaica at this time.
All
Another
right.
practice,
Go
yeah,
ahead.
another one that I saw in the Indian community is the red, the use of red. And in Jamaica, we put a red piece of string on the baby's forehead, yes, to warn off spirits.
Yes.
And so I am a member of the National Dance Theatre Company of Jamaica. And when we are dancing Kumina, the females they wear red underwear, So it's
Interesting.
and then now in the Christian community, red represents the blood of Jesus, right?
That's
And right, so the color red is significant in all expression of culture. Yeah, and that is what ties us together. Out of many, we
yeah.
are one.
What a nice way to package it. Amazing. Right. So you shared with us some of the influences. Are there other influences from the Chinese, Indian, and other cultures that you see coming out in the African
Yes,
culture?
yes. So we would have known about the indentured laborers, right? They
Right.
coming into Jamaica. So within Jonkunu has various characters. And as the Jamaica is populated with these culture, you have characters in Jonkunu representing those culture. So we have
Wow.
Indian, yes, we have the Indian, yeah, and we have Chinese character in Jonkunu, So some of those presents, some of those retention, some of those activities are in Jonkunu.
Okay. Awesome. All right. All right. So let's bring let's bring it all together. Let's bring it
Yes.
all together.
Patrick,
Hi. Hi, Mish.
We're having a meet and greet.
yeah,
Amazing. All right. So let's look at in terms of the benefits that we're seeing coming out of the for the Chinese community that is now a part of the one people. How has the Chinese community um, impacted our current our culture in general? How would you say it, Dalton?
no, many aspects. Like I said, Chinese over the years have, woven themselves to the fabric of the Jamaican society in music. I mean, everybody knows that the involvement of the Chinese in the development of reggae music is just on record. Uh, Randy Chin, yes, and Iron Record, I believe. They're the producer for artists like Beenie Man and Sean Paul, and
Yes.
my uncle Justin Yap was also a producer in the area of SCAD. Okay.
Okay.
Oh yeah, so I mean, not many Chinese can sing, okay, but they're certainly involved in the production of the music. Brian Lee and the Dragon Lee, for instance, okay, all these are great musicians, okay, and so music is one big area. Oh, and incidentally, Patricia Chin or Pat Chin, the VP or VP record, I don't know, VP record, just published a book. And I believe that for those of us who want to know more about the development of reggae music or music in Jamaica, you should really get a copy of that. It's an interesting read, okay? And, VP record is still going very strong, okay?
Yes.
And it is really a joy to see how the company has evolved into this second and third generation. Okay. Other than that, you talk about food a while ago, Michelle. Okay,
Yes.
I mean, who don't know chow mein? Who don't know sweet and sour chicken, right? Who don't know
Yeah.
chow bao? Who don't know, and you know that the Chinese have. I don't know whether they will invent the patty. I mean, but anyway, we need to call
Armin, yes.
it.
And yes, and we were
That,
sharing
that,
that
that's
with
your
you.
greatest gift to us, is it?
I, you know,
One off, one off.
Well, no, right. So, and also our Hakka heritage, which is, you know, the things like the pork and yam. I don't know if the pork and yam is
Pork
really
and yam.
good. Pork and yam, yes.
Okay.
And the what we call the gimjung yuk, the crispy pork. Okay. Sorry, Michelle, we talk a lot about pork, which is that.
Which
That's
is
okay. It's okay to
But
do
you
it
don't,
now
you
because I'm
don't
in
so
my
anyway.
home and not my grandmother's.
But I
so
think
right. Yeah.
who doesn't like Chinese food? And one of the things that I remember that I can say is this, okay, about our sweet and sour chicken or sweet and sour pork is that it is so uniquely Jamaican and Chinese, Chinese Jamaican or Jamaican Chinese, because over the years we have put our
Being on it.
like fresh pineapple into it, put some spice, cut on the pepper in it, okay? So the sauce is just rich and thick and and you have that with some plain rice. Oh my God, it's heaven, okay? I'm telling you. And you can't find a sweet and sour pork or chicken anywhere in the world
Yeah.
except in Jamaica. Okay.
That's
And it's
right.
so unique.
Really?
Tastes
Yeah,
different.
and also the swimming that we have with the egg roll, you can't
Mm-hmm.
find it anywhere. You ask for swimming in China or in Hong Kong, they look at you, what up, okay? Never heard of it. But in Jamaica,
Hmm.
we're swimming. Can you imagine? That is ours, Jamaica, okay? And as a result of over the years, we have modified and put it in
Yeah.
our Jamaican
Fusion of
accent.
the different
The
culture.
fusion, exactly. That's the right word. Fusion. Yes, fusion.
Yeah.
Yes.
Of course, in the area of you know uh, 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 politics, we produce many politicians as well. The Ferdy Yapsam, the Leon, Madam Leon, and the Lins and so on. Okay, so we have and not to mention in academia, okay, in engineers and in medicine and so on, okay. And so
Quite a bit.
we are the, I would say the some second and third generation. Unfortunately, some of them forgot how to speak Chinese. Okay, like Michelle. Okay, but that is not their fault. I mean, we're trying to correct that and try to interest the larger Chinese community to learn Mandarin, which is the national language, and also learn Hakka, which is what their forefathers speak. So Mandarin is already being taught at the institute at UWI.
Right.
We're trying to start the Hakka course as a way of reminding our brothers and sisters in the wider community that your forefathers, this is what they speak. Okay, you need to learn that. Not
And,
just to talk about simple things. Yeah.
Yes,
and
and
if
of
I
course,
may,
sure, go
Huh?
ahead, Patrick.
yes, I mean, talking about learning, and I'm hearing Sir talking about those Chinese dishes, and I'm saying, how can we get the Jamaican individuals to understand the recipe that is involved in these Chinese cooking food? And JCDC has a culinary competition, and
That's right.
we facilitate individuals across Jamaica to see, to taste, and to understand the Chinese food and the recipe and the things that are involved. So, shameful plug: the culinary competition in JCDC. Chinese, you can enter. Indian, you
Well, let
can
me,
enter
or
the
Patrick, let
culinary
me come in for
competition.
concern when you have it, and boy, we will. I would make sure that we have chefs, restaurants. I'm sure
Yes.
they may be interested. What I would love to see is for them to even understand some of our Jamaican ingredients. Use as tamarind rather than use like vinegar, perhaps. Because tamarind is very, have that sourness of it, but we can use that rather than using some other. Look, ackee. Can we do something with ackee? I have no idea, but look, I would love to see that. I mean, that is just this is I've been talking to some of my friends. I'm in the restaurant business as a matter of fact. Okay, so Patrick, right plug. Let me know when you're ready so I can get the people I'm interested. Okay.
And the
Very
tamarind
good.
is something that's common to both our cultures too now,
That's
Dalton, because of course we use tamarind a lot in our to make our chutneys and so on.
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
realize that.
and then tamarind balls, Jamaican. Now we
Oh,
know.
me love Tom Ball,
Yes.
but I tell you, Tom Ball,
that,
boy,
that's right.
know,
Here you go. And
I,
now you ought to understand why, because here we have the connection going on. Just remember,
Yes.
the platform is Serenity Resource Connector. And see, you have the connection going on here. So we're expecting that we're going to have greater collaboration between the Chinese community and the JCDC. So we have some
Yes.
more diversity in the culinary arts competition. Not a shameless
Super.
plug. This is a partnership between Serenity Resource Connector and the JCDC as we seek to highlight our culture and
Yes.
how all of us can come together to preserve our rich cultural heritage. That's what we're all about here on Culture Corner. So when we meet on first Thursdays, and that is what it's all about. Because
Mm.
I'm learning so many things, and I'm sure those who are connected are learning quite a lot about the diversity of our people. All
Indeed.
right. So let's bring it home as we're on the last stretch of the hour in terms of looking forward, because now we're talking about reigniting greatness through our heritage. What does that look like for you, Michelle?
Well, when we already spoke about some of the aspects of it, all the different types of people, the people and where they're coming from, and that rich history and knowledge that they are bringing to Jamaica, and what that knowledge means for us as a people to enrich not just our culture but our economy, our entire way of life, as we want to incorporate our Vision 2030 plans into this. All of that coming together is what helps us to build and to go forward. So these persons who are coming in, they're adding to our culture, they're adding to our knowledge, and enriching what we have here. We spoke about all of the different elements where we see this being embodied and being showcased. Food, dance, music, all of these areas, when we talk about the influence that is there and continues to be there from all these persons that come and make us Jamaicans, because we don't it's a peculiarity. We don't say I don't know that members of my family, extended family, say we're Indo-Jamaican. Or I don't know, Dalton can speak and say, do you say you're whatever is the variation of
Just
Chinese
send information.
Jamaican?
Just send
It may
information.
come up in conversation, right? But we don't. We just say we're Jamaican.
All Jamaicans.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Right.
right.
So reigniting a nation for greatness. What I would love to see is the use of our African retention or knowledge, right? Enter the JCDC dance competition, Creative Folk A, and that is where we explore our African dances. The beauty is that some of our dancehall practitioners, they are using the African movements and they don't know. So, for example, Dirt
That's
Bounce,
right.
we are going now. It is a representation of a dance that is called Zella, that is very African based. So it's the shifting of the pelvis statically from side to side. And that is what Zella is, right? So it's to bring to the understanding in our
Yeah.
youth that you are using the African retention unconsciously. So we want to bring them to the point of knowing and deliberately use it.
Rich heritage. And as you mentioned, dance, before Dalton comes back in, let's take a look at this.
All right,
Right.
beautiful.
Very nice.
Right,
Tell us
so that
about
was
that.
that was the Kumina. That was a Kumina dance at the Endamani College of the Visual and Performing Arts. So the dancers were going in anti-clockwise direction. You saw
Right.
the drum center playing Kas Kabandu. So that is a traditional scene in the African community where there is no spectator. Everybody is dancing in the circle.
Okay, that's coming together.
Yeah.
Love it, love it. Dalton, what do you see?
I think what I
Yes,
would love to see
future.
more, that Jamaica as a society can perhaps seriously look at, is to have uh, a society that is more family centered. The nucleus of a family is really important for the development of a child. Okay, uh, having a family with parents, father and mother, as a unit is very important. Okay, having having lived here for over 50 years and having employed people from different industries, manufacturing, my restaurant, and when I was an executive at the bank. So I came across different levels of Jamaican from different spheres of life. And one of the things that I've observed is that a lot of the children, a lot of the kids who come to for an interview, most of them just don't know their father. Okay,
Mhm.
especially in the more more sort of lower level jobs, put it that way. Okay, and the distinction is so different. At the lower level jobs, there's always a single parent company. But as you move high up, like when you employ a programmer or engineer or IT professional, you find that they are from quote unquote proper family. Okay, I'm not saying that there are exceptions in those areas. Okay, but I think let's look at our family structure. Okay, and teach our young man, our young men, to be responsible. Okay, about what they do. As a man, rather than having kids that they don't care about. And that is something that is very painful to continue to see. Okay, and I'm hoping that we can somewhere down the road, maybe it will take a generation or two for us to get that message through to our young people and young women. Okay, unfortunately, the taking care of the children for with the women mostly. Okay, and that is something that we need to change. Okay, so that we can have a better Jamaica going forward. Okay, and also primary education we need to start from a young age. Okay, but then again, if the raw material, which is your young child, is already having such an issue growing up in a single parent company, a single parent family, sorry, then obviously, the primary education can only help so much. But I'm really looking forward to see that if we can get that happen. Okay, uh, I think you know you were allowed to see a Chinese family with single parents. Not many, and this is not a board. This is just an observation we have. Okay, there are exceptions, but I would think that majority of the cases they are you know uh, 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 of a mother and father, and that is how you must bring up a child. Okay. Anyway,
Yes. Some serious
sorry
wonder
to
there, right? And very, very valid point you raised there, Dalton, in terms of the family's importance of the family structure and
very important.
educational focus from the
Focus
early age.
early is
Right,
because
which is why we have this year of early childhood development series that we are doing with the Early Childhood Commission on third Thursdays here on the Serenity Resource Connector. This is a very important part because we need to take care of that foundational stuff because we are here talking about heritage and it all began years before us, and so we have a responsibility just like our foreparents did to do whatever it is that we can to help to provide that kind of um, foundation for our younger generation so that we can create the future that we would want for our children and grandchildren. Right. Amazing. All right. It has been an awesome sharing. We heard from Dalton Yap, Chinese Benevolent Association president, sharing about the rich heritage of the Chinese. They have been here in Jamaica from the 1800s, not since the 1900s, from the 1800s, long before we became independent. And they actually came here as indentured servants working on the plantations, just like our African foreparents. So that's one of the similarity that we saw there. And Michelle shared that she grew up here in Jamaica, but in a traditional Indian family setting. And we heard from Patrick Earle that shared about the African retention, and it's all this nice fusion of the different cultural elements from Chinese, Indian, African, and the whole mix. That's why out of many we are one people. All right. This has been Culture Corner for the month of October. And as you know, we are going to be celebrating Heritage Week later this month. And you
Yes.
will hear more about that. And thank you so much for those who are able to join us live. For those who are watching the replay, do share the recording. For those who are tuned in on Love TV, we'll be on the Serenity Resource Connector YouTube page. We let them stay there. There's actually a playlist for the Culture Corner, so you can take a bite into all that has gone before. And we see you again, same time, same place next week as we turn our attention to another episode of Community Safety and Security with the JCF team there in Clarendon. Thank you again for joining us for those lovely guests. Looking forward
Thank
to see you all
you.
soon. All right. Continue
Good
to
night,
stay safe
everyone.
and have a
Thank
good
you.
night.